The Disk That Never Flew. Nazi Germany's Anti-Gravity Secret. Chapter 1. Toronto, 1974. Ernst Zündel places the book on his desk and admires the cover. Against a stark black background, Adolf Hitler's face stares out beneath bold yellow text, UFOs, Nazi secret weapon. The question mark is important. Always leave the question mark. Below Hitler's portrait, a silver disk rises from Antarctic ice, glowing with mysterious energy. Zündel, a 35-year-old graphic artist and publisher, knows exactly what he's created. It's entertainment, it's provocation. It's a ticket to radio shows and television interviews that would never give him airtime for his real passion, Holocaust denial and neo-Nazi propaganda. But flying saucers. Flying saucers sell. Under his pseudonym, Christoph Friedrich Zündel has just published a book claiming that Nazi Germany developed anti-gravity disk aircraft during World War II, that these craft escaped to a secret base in Antarctica before Germany's defeat, and that UFO sightings across America and Europe are actually test flights of perfected Nazi technology, preparing for the Fourth Reich's return. The Samisdat Publishers newsletter advertises an expedition to Antarctica to locate the polar entrance to the hollow Earth, where Hitler and his scientists supposedly wait with their fleet of advanced spacecraft. Cost $999 per seat. The expedition will never happen. Zündel knows it will never happen. But the publicity is real. The phone starts ringing within days. In a telephone conversation years later with Frank Mila of the Skeptics Society, Zündel admits the truth. I realized that North Americans were not interested in being educated. They want to be entertained. The book was for fun. With a picture of the Führer on the cover and flying saucers coming out of Antarctica, it was a chance to get on radio and TV talk shows. But by then, the myth has taken on a life of its own. The Haunebu, the Vril Society, the secret Antarctic bases, the anti-gravity engines, the electromagnetic propulsion systems, the craft that could reach 13,000 miles per hour and escape Earth's atmosphere. None of it ever existed, but millions believe it did. And somehow that belief created an entire alternate history of World War II that refuses to die even after the creator confessed it was fiction. Chapter 2. 1936. The Black Forest. The story always begins with a crash. In the mythology of Nazi UFOs, a disc-shaped craft plummets from the sky into Germany's Black Forest in 1936. The ship and its occupants, sometimes described as aliens, sometimes left deliberately vague, are recovered by SS troops and spirited away to a secret facility. German scientists dismantle the craft, study its propulsion system, reverse engineer its technology. This becomes the origin story. The moment Nazi Germany supposedly gained access to technology decades beyond anything on Earth. The catalyst that transformed Germany from a defeated nation struggling under Versailles Treaty restrictions into a technological superpower capable of building spacecraft. There's no documentation of this crash. No wreckage was ever recovered. No witness testimony exists from anyone credible. The story appears in fringe literature in the 1970s, presented as established fact with no sources. Cited, no evidence provided, no way to verify or disprove it. But it provides the necessary explanation. How else could Nazi Germany, a nation that entered World War II with horse-drawn artillery and obsolete biplanes, suddenly develop anti-gravity propulsion? They must have had help. They must have found something. The Black Forest crash fills that narrative need perfectly. From this fictional foundation, an entire alternate history grows. The SS establishes a secretive research division called EIV or SSEIV, depending on which version you believe. They create testing facilities at a remote location called Haunebu in northwestern Germany, a site so secret it doesn't appear on official maps. The facility gets its name from a property that supposedly belonged to a farming family who mysteriously perished, leaving the land abandoned and unclaimed. At Haunebu, German scientists begin building disc-shaped aircraft based on the recovered alien technology. The first prototypes are called WWII. Their 25 meters in diameter crew of 8 powered by something called an Thule tachyonator or an electromagnetic gravitic engine. The specific terminology varies between sources, but the concept remains consistent. These craft don't use conventional propulsion. They manipulate gravity itself. Construction accelerates through 1937, 1938, 1939. By 1940, the WWII has completed successful test flights. German engineers develop improved models, Haunebu II larger and faster, Haunebu III massive at 120 meters diameter, even a Haunebu IV that never progresses beyond blueprints. A parallel program develops the WRII series, smaller, more maneuverable craft, built by a different research group connected to the mysterious WRII Society, an occult organization supposedly in telepathic contact with extraterrestrial beings from Aldebaran, a star system 65 light-years from Earth. The narrative grows more elaborate with each telling. Victor Schauberger, an Austrian engineer, who really did experiment with vortex propulsion systems, gets incorporated into the story as the designer of anti-gravity engines. The Thule Society and WRII Society, both real organizations with documented ties to early Nazi occultism, become the masterminds behind the DISC program. The entire project gets tied to esoteric Nazism, ancient Aryan mysticism, and conspiracy theories about secret knowledge passed down from Atlantis or Hyperborea. By 1945, according to the mythology, Nazi Germany has operational flying saucers capable of speeds up to 13,000 miles per hour, can reach altitudes of 40,000 meters in minutes, and can travel to space. Some versions claim Germans landed on the moon in 1942 and established a base there. Then the war ends. Germany collapses. The Allies search frantically for these wonder weapons, but they find nothing, because the SS, foreseeing defeat, evacuated the entire program to Antarctica. Chapter 3, 1950, the Italian article. The first public claim about Nazi flying saucers appears in Il Giornale d'Italia in early 1950. Professor Giuseppe Belluzzo, an Italian scientist and former Minister of National Economy under Mussolini, writes that types of flying discs were designed and studied in Germany and Italy as early as 1942. It's a vague assertion with no specifics, no documentation, no names or locations, but it plants a seed. Weeks later, German technician Rudolf Schriever gives an interview to Der Spiegel, claiming he designed a disc-shaped craft at BMW's Prague works until April 1945, when he fled to Czechoslovakia. His description is more plausible than alien technology, a circular plane of rotating turbine blades, 15 meters in diameter, powered by conventional jet engines. It's an exotic design, certainly, but it's firmly grounded in known aeronautical engineering. Schriever's claims inspire others. In the early 1950s, several German engineers come forward with stories about experimental disc aircraft they allegedly worked on during the war. Some describe the Schriever-Habermol flying disc. Others mention projects by Otto Heinkel or Rudolf Schriever. These accounts vary wildly in detail and often contradict each other, but they share a common thread. Germany was researching circular aircraft. There's a grain of truth here. Germany did experiment with unconventional designs. The Horten brothers built flying wings. Arthur Sack created the AS-6, a circular winged aircraft that flew but performed terribly. Victor Schauberger really did research vortex engines, though they never approached the capabilities described in UFO literature. But there's a crucial difference between experimental circular aircraft and anti-gravity flying saucers. One is eccentric aeronautical engineering, the other is science fiction. The line between them gets deliberately blurred throughout the 1950s as UFO sightings explode across America and Europe. Project Blue Book, the U.S. Air Force's UFO investigation program, notes that some reports describe craft similar to German flying wing designs. Could the Soviets have captured German technology? Could experimental Nazi aircraft explain some UFO sightings? It's a reasonable question based on known facts. Germany did pursue advanced technology. The Soviets did capture German scientists and equipment. Some UFO reports do resemble unconventional aircraft designs. But reasonable speculation quickly morphs into wild conspiracy theory. Chapitre 4. 1960. Le Matin des Magiciens. Louis Pauwels and Jacques Bergier publish Le Matin des Magiciens, The Morning of the Magicians, and the mythology explodes into popular culture. The book makes spectacular claims about the Vril Society of Berlin. According to Pauwels and Bergier, this occult organization possessed secret knowledge about a mysterious energy force called Vril, a term borrowed from Edward Bulwer Lytton's 1871 science fiction novel, The Coming Race. In Bulwer Lytton's book, Vril is a form of limitless energy that grants telepathy, telekinesis, and other superhuman abilities to an underground civilization. Pauwels and Bergier claim the Vril Society believed this energy was real and dedicated themselves to harnessing it. They allegedly made contact with extraterrestrial beings from Aldebaran, who provided technical information about building spacecraft. The society worked in partnership with the Thule Society and the Nazi Party to develop a series of flying disc prototypes. It's presented as hidden history, as suppressed truth that the post-war world doesn't want to acknowledge. The book becomes an international bestseller, translated into dozens of languages. It spawns an entire genre of forbidden archaeology and ancient astronaut literature that blends history, mythology, occultism, and science fiction into an irresistible cocktail of conspiracy. Several years later, writers including Jan van Helsing, Norbert Jürgen Rathofer, and Vladimir Terziski build on Pauwels and Bergier's work. They add elaborate technical specifications. They provide blueprints that circulate through underground publishing networks. They describe the Haunebu series in precise detail. Haunebu, an 125 meters diameter crew of 8 top-speed Ford 800 kilometers per hour, powered by a Thule Tachyonator 7B engine. First test flight 1939. Haunebu II, 32 meters diameter crew of 9 range, 21,000 kilometers top speed, 21,000 kilometers per hour, could remain airborne for 55 hours. Test flights 1943-1944. Total of 106 test flights completed. 7 production models built before war's end. Haunebu III. 71 meters diameter crew of 32 top speed unknown, but theoretically capable of spaceflight. One prototype completed in March 1945. evacuated to Antarctica before Allied capture. The technical specifications are absurdly precise for craft that allegedly never had their performance publicly documented. Where did these numbers come from? Who recorded them? Why would Nazi Germany keep meticulous records of anti-gravity performance data but leave no trace of the program itself? The sources never explain. They simply present the information as established fact, often with grainy photographs of alleged test flights. Photographs that closer examination reveals to be obvious, hoaxes models suspended by visible wires, retouched images, misidentified conventional aircraft. Chapter 5, 1978, the Antarctic Base. Miguel Serrano, a Chilean diplomat and Nazi sympathizer, publishes El Cordón Dorado Hitlerismo Esotérico, the Golden Thread Esoteric Hitlerism. Serrano claims Adolf Hitler was an avatar of Vishnu, a divine being who didn't die in his Berlin bunker, but instead escaped to a secret underground base in New Swabia, Antarctica. There, Hitler communes with Hyperborean gods, supernatural entities from ancient Aryan mythology. He waits with his fleet of operational Haunebu craft, perfected over decades of continued development. Serrano predicts Hitler will emerge from his Antarctic fortress, leading a UFO armada to establish the Fourth Reich. The book becomes a sensation in fringe nationalist circles. It ties together multiple conspiracy theories into one grand narrative: hollow Earth theories, ancient astronauts, esoteric Nazism, UFOs, and the survival of Hitler. This is when Ernst Zündel sees his opportunity. The ufology community is at its peak of public acceptance in the 1970s. The Bermuda Triangle, ancient astronauts' government cover-ups of alien contact, all are mainstream topics on television and in bookstores. Zündel, primarily interested in promoting Holocaust denial, realizes that Nazi UFOs are his entry point into popular media. He publishes UFO's Nazi Secret Weapon in 1974 under the pseudonym Christoph Friedrich. The book weaves Serrano's esoteric Nazism together with earlier claims about German disc aircraft. It adds new details. The Antarctic base is called Neuschwabenland, New Swabia, named after the German Antarctic expedition of 1938-1939 that really did occur. The base is hidden beneath the ice, accessible only through underground tunnels. The Germans continue developing their spacecraft, waiting for the right moment to reveal themselves. Zündel's Samisdat Publishers newsletter advertises that expedition to Antarctica for $999.99. The newsletter promises to locate the polar entrance to the hollow Earth. When no expedition materializes, believers assume it's because governments intervened to prevent the truth from being revealed. The mythology achieves critical mass. Multiple authors are now publishing books about Nazi UFOs, each adding new details, each citing each other as sources, creating a circular reference system that appears to provide corroboration, but actually just amplifies the original unfounded claims. Vladimir Terziski, a Bulgarian engineer who bills himself as president of the American Academy of Dissident Sciences, produces videos claiming Germans landed on the moon in 1942, that Russians and Americans secretly visited this German moon base in the 1950s, that NASA conceals evidence of atmosphere and vegetation on the moon to exclude the Third World from space exploration. Terziski's evidence consists of blurry photographs, misidentified historical images, and documents that closer examination reveals to be fabrications. But to believers, the lack of clear evidence becomes proof of the cover-up's effectiveness. The conspiracy is so vast, so sophisticated, that of course there's no hard proof. That's how you know it's real. Chapter 6. The Evidence That Doesn't Exist. Here's what historians and aeronautical engineers have found regarding Nazi flying saucers. No blueprints in any official repository. Germany was meticulous about documenting military projects. The archives contain detailed specifications for V-2 rockets, jet aircraft, guided missiles, even failed experimental designs. There are no Haunebu blueprints, no technical manuals, no performance test data, nothing. No physical evidence. Not a single piece of wreckage component or artifact has ever been authenticated as coming from a Nazi anti-gravity aircraft. In 1945, the Allies conducted Operation Paperclip, systematically looting Germany's technological achievements. They captured V-2 rockets, jet engines, submarines, code machines, research data. They found nothing related to flying saucers. No credible witness testimony. The claims come from fringe authors, writing decades after the war, citing unnamed sources and unverifiable accounts. When actual German scientists and engineers are interviewed, including those who worked on classified projects, none mention disk aircraft with anti-gravity propulsion. No physical possibility. The Thule tachyonator and electromagnetic gravitic engine don't correspond to any known physics. Anti-gravity propulsion remains firmly in the realm of science fiction. The energy requirements to achieve the described performance would exceed anything Germany could generate in the 1940s by orders of magnitude. In 2018, German model company Revell released a scale model kit of a Haunebu 2 flying saucer, with packaging text describing it as a historical vehicle from Nazi Germany. The German Children's Protection Association and the Military History Museum complained that the product presented fiction as history. Revell issued an apology and discontinued the model, acknowledging the criticism was absolutely justified. It was a small acknowledgement of a larger problem. The Nazi UFO mythology has become so embedded in popular culture that many people assume there must be some truth to it. Models, video games, comic books, movies like Iron Sky all treat Nazi flying saucers as established alternate history rather than pure fiction. Chapter 7. Why People Believe. The appeal of Nazi UFO mythology isn't complicated. It provides a comforting explanation for Germany's defeat. They didn't really lose, they just relocated. The technology was real. The capability existed. The Fourth Reich survives somewhere waiting. For neo-Nazi sympathizers, this narrative preserves the fantasy of Aryan technological supremacy without having to confront the reality of Germany's military, moral, and ideological failure. It explains UFO sightings without requiring belief in aliens. Some people find it easier to accept that Nazis built flying saucers than to accept that extraterrestrial visitors are monitoring Earth. Nazi technology is at least theoretically human-made, grounded in fictional engineering rather than incomprehensible alien science. It feeds conspiracy thinking. The lack of evidence becomes evidence of the cover-up. Governments are hiding the truth. Documents have been destroyed. Witnesses have been silenced. The conspiracy is so vast that only fragments survive, which conveniently explains why proof is always just out of reach. It's entertaining. There's undeniable narrative appeal to the idea of secret Nazi bases, hidden technology mysteries waiting to be uncovered. It's the plot of 1,000 pulp novels and adventure films. Real history is messy, complicated, often boring. Nazi UFOs are simple, dramatic, exciting. But there's a darker consequence. As writer Stephen Tucker notes in his books Debunking Nazi UFO Claims, if you can believe that Adolf Hitler built spaceships, then the idea that Auschwitz never existed seems fairly reasonable by comparison. This is why Ernst Zündel created the mythology in the first place. His real goal was always Holocaust denial and neo-Nazi propaganda. The flying saucers were bait away to get audiences who would never listen to Holocaust denial, but would happily consume Nazi UFO content. Once you've accepted one impossible claim about Nazi Germany, you're primed to accept others. The mythology serves to rehabilitate Nazi Germany by depicting them as technological visionaries rather than genocidal criminals. It shifts focus from what Germany actually did, industrial-scale murder of millions, to fantastical achievements they never accomplished. It transforms the Third Reich from history's greatest moral failure into a fascinating technological mystery. Chapter 8. What Really Flew. Germany did pursue unconventional aircraft designs during World War II. The Horten Ho 229 flying wing, a real jet-powered aircraft that actually flew. Arthur Sack's AS-6 circular wing experimental plane, which flew badly and was quickly abandoned. Victor Schauberger's Vortex engine research, which never progressed beyond theoretical work. The Bachem Ba 349 Natter rocket-powered interceptor. The Messerschmitt Me-163 Comet rocket plane. These were real projects with real documentation, real prototypes, real test flights. They were remarkable achievements given Germany's circumstances. But they weren't flying saucers. They weren't anti-gravity craft. They couldn't reach space. They couldn't travel at 13,000 miles per hour. The mythology takes these genuine innovations and inflates them into impossible capabilities. The Horten Ho 229 becomes evidence that Germany mastered flying wing technology, which supposedly proves they could have built disc aircraft, ignoring that a wing and a disc are completely different aerodynamically. Schauberger's Vortex research becomes proof of anti-gravity propulsion, ignoring that vortex engines and anti-gravity have no connection. Real German achievements get lost in the noise of fictional Wunderwaffen. Serious historical study of what Germany actually developed, often quite interesting engineering, gets overshadowed by breathless speculation about spacecraft that never existed. Chapter 9. Antarctica 2025. No Nazi base has ever been found in Antarctica. Multiple expeditions have explored the continent extensively. Scientific stations from dozens of nations now dot the ice. Satellite imagery covers every square kilometer. The ice sheets have been surveyed, measured, drilled. If there were tunnels, bases, hangars carved into ice and rock, we would have found them. The 1938-1939 German Antarctic expedition aboard the Schwabenland really happened. It was a whaling industry survey mission that claimed territory for Germany New Swabia and took aerial photographs. The expedition lasted from December 1938 to April 1939. It carried no construction equipment, no materials to build a base, insufficient supplies for extended habitation. The crew lacked the expertise, resources, or time to establish anything permanent. Yet this real expedition becomes the foundation for elaborate fantasies. In the mythology, Germany secretly sent subsequent expeditions during the war, transporting equipment, personnel, flying disc components, nuclear materials. U-boats supposedly ferried escaping Nazis to Antarctic facilities in 1945. Hitler himself allegedly relocated there. Operation High Jump. A real U.S. Navy Antarctic expedition in 1946 to 1947, led by Admiral Richard E. Byrd, gets incorporated into the mythology. Conspiracy theorists claim High Jump was actually a military invasion intended to destroy the Nazi base, that U.S. aircraft were shot down by German flying saucers, that Byrd discovered entrances to the hollow Earth. In reality, High Jump was a training and research mission. One aircraft crashed during a whiteout routine aviation accident, not shot down by UFOs. The expedition accomplished its scientific objectives and returned home. Byrd's personal diary contains nothing about Hollow Earth or Nazi encounters. The secret diary, quoted by conspiracy theorists, is a fabrication that appeared decades later. Chapter 10. The Confession That Changed Nothing. When Ernst Zündel admitted his Nazi UFO books were deliberate fiction created to gain publicity for Samisdat Publishers, it should have ended the mythology. He told Frank Mila of the Skeptics Society that he wrote the books for entertainment, not education, that North Americans wanted sensationalism, not facts, that putting Hitler's face on a cover with flying saucers was a guaranteed way to get on talk shows. He explicitly stated it was fiction. But Zündel also continued defending the books as late as 2002, decades after his private admission. When pressed, he would point to the question mark in the title, UFO's Nazi Secret Weapon, as if that punctuation absolved him of responsibility for spreading disinformation. The mythology survived its creator's confession because it had long since escaped his control. Other authors had built upon his foundation. The circular citation network made the myth self-sustaining. Believers simply dismissed Zündel's confession as coerced or misinterpreted or strategically deployed to throw off investigators. This is how modern myths function. They don't require truth. They require narrative appeal and enough plausible-sounding detail to give believers something to point to. Once established in popular consciousness, they become nearly impossible to eradicate because disproving them requires detailed technical knowledge that most people don't have or want to acquire. It's easier to believe in Nazi flying saucers than to understand why they're impossible. It's more entertaining to imagine secret bases and hidden technology than to study what Germany actually built. And for some, it's more comfortable to focus on fantastical achievements than to confront the historical reality of what Nazi Germany actually was. Chapter 11. The Disc That Never Flew. There are no Haunebu flying saucers rusting in Antarctic ice. There never were. The disk that could manipulate gravity travel to space, achieve impossible speeds, it existed only in Ernst Zündel's imagination, in grainy fake photographs, in technical specifications, invented by fringe authors, in the persistent human desire to believe in hidden wonders. Germany built rockets, they built jets, they built submarines and guided missiles and advanced optics. They pioneered rocketry principles that eventually put humans on the moon. Those real achievements were remarkable. But they didn't build flying saucers. They didn't master anti-gravity. They didn't escape to Antarctic fortresses. They lost the war, their regime collapsed. Their leaders died or faced trial. Their technological secrets were captured and exploited by the victors. The mythology persists not because there's evidence supporting it, but because there's an audience that wants it to be true. And in the age of internet conspiracy theories, that audience grows rather than shrinks. Every debunking is interpreted as proof of cover-up. Every absence of evidence becomes evidence of how thoroughly the truth has been suppressed. But absence of evidence when evidence should exist is simply absence. No blueprints means no blueprints. No wreckage means no wreckage. No witness testimony means no witness testimony. The Haunebu never flew because the Haunebu never existed outside the pages of Nazi UFO literature. Ernst Zündel died in 2017 at age 78, having spent years in German prison for Holocaust denial. His UFO books remained his most commercially successful work, reprinted and translated, cited as sources in countless conspiracy books and websites. He successfully entertained millions while building a platform for spreading neo-Nazi propaganda. The flying saucer with a swastika on its hull rising from Antarctic ice remains one of the most recognizable images in conspiracy culture. It appears in video games, alternative history fiction documentaries about ancient mysteries. It's become iconic. It's also completely fictional. But icons don't need to be real. They just need to be memorable. And the disc that never flew will continue not flying through popular imagination long after every historian has explained why it's impossible, after every archive has been searched and found empty, after every claim has been debunked and dismissed. Because in the end, the truth about Nazi UFOs isn't really about UFOs at all. It's about the stories we tell ourselves when reality isn't satisfying enough, when we prefer comfortable myths to uncomfortable truths, when we choose entertainment over education. Ernst Zündel understood this perfectly. He just never expected the myth to outlive his ability to control it, to grow beyond his intentions, to become something larger than a publicity stunt for a neo-Nazi publisher. The Haunebu flies unpowered not by anti-gravity or electromagnetic propulsion, but by the oldest force in human history, the desire to believe in impossible things, even when, especially when they never happened.